Yo, what's up guys, it's your boy Sami here. Today we are gonna see, what if Naruto had the power of Phoenix, part 4. Hope you'll enjoy this video. So before we start, please subscribe to our channel, and like this video. So let's get into the video. Now those who knew of Naruto being from the future were surprised when he took this course of action. Not only had he told the council basically to kiss his ass, his power spike was enough that it scared the shit out of everyone in the entire village being so massive. Naruto was still pissed off after he went walking through the streets of Konoha. Everyone seemed to be giving him a white berth on the walkway. Naruto saw a figure walking toward him pissed, and said, "Gaki, what the hell was that about? Not only do you piss off the entire village, but you get into a pissing contest with the council scaring the shit out of everyone in the village." Naruto ignored her, and kept walking. She looked at him, and said, "What? No answer. Too good to talk to a friend. Here I thought you wanted to be special." Naruto stopped in his tracks, and said, "Trust Enko." Enko stopped, looked confused, and said, "What?" Naruto said, "I said trust. Do you know how hard it is to live a life where the people you want to be close to don't trust you? It's not bad enough that my father had to curse me, but even after I tell the truth to those I trust, and I expect the same thing from them, no matter what, I am never trusted." Enko looked at him, and said, "You are an idiot. Of course no one is going to trust you. You're a ninja. We make our living out of deception, idiot. You know, for someone who lived as much as you say you have, you can be naive." Naruto looked at the sky, and said, "You know the last thing Kyuubi told me before he died, Enko?" Enko said, "What?" Naruto said he told me that I should never deny who I am. To do that would be betraying myself. You know what the sad thing is? I never had a chance to know who I am. I have always been what everyone already thinks I am. A monster, a demon, an idiot, a weakling, a dead last, and a failure. I have had to fight for every ounce of respect I ever had. Do you have any idea what it is like to wait for the people you trust to stab you in the back?" Enko stood there quietly, and said, "Yeah kid, I do. But I also know something you seem to have forgotten. Respect is earned, not given." Naruto looked at her, and sighed, closing his eyes, and said, "I'm tired, Enko. Truth is, I don't know what I truly want to accomplish." Enko looked at him, and said, "What makes you happy?" Naruto was quiet for a moment, and said, "Having someone talk to me as an equal without looking at me with hate. Enjoying a meal with someone, and not worry if I have been poisoned. To have the one thing I never actually had. A family. That is what would make me happy. The feeling of not being alone anymore." Enko said, "So why do you try so hard to show everyone how much of a badass you are, and give them one more reason to hate you, and stay away from you?" Naruto looked at her for a moment, and said, "You're right. I already blew this one, and probably will get the Leaf Village destroyed because of my damn pride and arrogance." Enko said, "You're going to start over again, aren't you?" Naruto nodded, and said, "Thank you." Enko said, "What?" Naruto said, "I know what I need to do now, and blowing my stack at the council did help clear my head. I have dealt with those assholes enough, and learned enough laws to really piss them off. I have wanted to do that so much it felt good. I do have one thing I have always wanted to do." Enko said, "What's that?" Naruto said, "You like torture, right?" Enko nodded her head slowly, and Naruto said, "There's a certain guy I want to have a little fun with before I start over again." Enko said, "What are you planning?" Naruto said, "How would you like a little revenge on Orochimaru?" Enko grinned, and said, "I like your style. What do you have planned?" Naruto said, "Meet me at the tower in the Forest of Death in 2 hours." Enko nodded, and Naruto disappeared in a swirl of flames. 2 hours later, when Enko arrived at the tower in the Forest of Death, the sight the creator was not what she expected. The main battle arena had 2 trees growing out of the floor, and she saw a gray-haired kid with glasses being held to both trees by vines. Enko walked into the room, and said, "What the hell?" Naruto walked over, and threw a glass he was drinking against the wall, shattering it, and said, "Meet Kabuto, Orochimaru's right-hand man." Kabuto said, "I don't know what he is talking about. I have never met Orochimaru before. I was on my way to the hospital to work, and he appeared out of nowhere, and brought me here. Help." Naruto said to Enko, "He says he never met Orochimaru before, but checked his neck." Kabuto paled, as Enko walked over, and saw a cursed seal, and she said, "Never met him, huh? Okay. You got my interest. What do you plan to do?" Naruto said, "Well, Kabuto here has a healing ability almost as good as mine. I was thinking we could play a little game. First one to leave a permanent scar on him wins the right to move on to the next form of torture." Enko smirked, and said, "I like your style," and pulled out a kunai. Naruto smirked, and also pulled out a kunai. The next 6 hours screams could be heard coming from the Forest of Death, but since everyone avoided it, no one heard them. After it was over, Enko said, "I can't believe you did that." Naruto smirked, and said, I just carved our names into his back. You removed his manhood." Enko said, "Well, we did learn that was the one thing he could not grow back." Naruto nodded, and said, "I know what you mean. You pulled out his nails. I broke his knuckles. You removed them. I shattered his arms. You filled his muscles with venom. I broke his ankles. You removed your teeth." Enko said, "At least I like the way you finished him off." 100 exploding tags wrapped around it that you use the 1000 years of death with. Naruto smiled and said, at least we found out a little info about Orochimaru I can use. Denko sighed and said, so when are you going back to start over again? Naruto's smile faded and said, soon. I already used the only poison that could kill me and put it in my body before we started. I did not want to ask anyone to kill me to go back. It should finish for me soon. Denko nodded and said, so what do you plan to do when you go back? Naruto said, I think I will work behind the scenes again. Secretly get strong again. I don't know if I will do the disappearing act again though. Even though I traveled some it was lonely. Denko said, so what about your clan? Naruto said, I only know 3 women I would like to have in my life. Senseihem, Tamari-chan, and you, but I don't know how to get all 3 of you and do what needs to be done. I don't want to live without all 3 of you though. You each have a quality that is unique to you that makes my life more complete. Denko said, you seem to know how to get Kurenai and that Tamari girl. I think the only one who you don't really know how to get is me, huh? Naruto nodded and said, Tamari is an easy one to get. All I have to do is either arrange a marriage with her father or help Gar, but I hate going through the old man to do it. Once I actually meet her, it is easy to get her to like me, because I don't use her to get to her father, or as a plaything. I see her as a person and let her know. Kurenai is harder to get, because guys are always trying to seduce her for her looks, but if I show her how special she is to me, I can do it. Also the fact I am interested in the real her helps. You, the only thing I really have to impress you with is my drive to kill them. I know you have a mask on to keep people from getting close, and even with my lifetimes, I never could get really close to share the pain I see in myself also. Denko nodded, and sat for a moment, and said, when you go back there are 3 things you could do to impress me. Naruto looked at her surprise, and she said, first, send me some white roses. They're my favorite, but don't tell who they are from. The second thing will be harder for you to do, but I have faith in you. When Orochimaru took me, as an apprentice, I had a locket with a picture of my parents, and me. He took it, and threw it into the chasm by the hot springs on the west side of town. I figure with your bloodline you might be able to get down there, and return it to me. Naruto nodded, and said, what's the third thing? Denko closed her eyes, and said, do you know my middle name? Naruto shook his head no. Denko said it, sir. Nobody knows it except you now. Not even Orochimaru. Will you send me the flowers and the locket, call me Serahim. Nobody has called me that since I was 5 when my parents died. Do not reveal who you really are to me until you're this age again though, so I will take you seriously. You can tell me about yourself in letters and stuff, but don't tell your age, and treat me special. Also put a code word that only you, and I will know in case someone were to get the letters instead of me or something. Naruto started to cough a little blood now, as the poison was finishing what it was to do. Enko looked at him sadly with a tear in her eye, and said, one more thing to Gaki. Explain to me in your letters the truth of who you are, but not enough for me to figure out, and tell me about how you are the last of your clan, but make sure I know you are not an Uchiha. Also tell me about Kurenai, and if you get the sand girl also, so I don't think you're cheating. Tell Kurenai also so we can both get used to each other. And I want you to know I do like you. I have since our fight back a few years ago, even though I did not know who you were. Naruto smiled at her, and felt his eyes slowly closing. The last thing he felt, before he died, was a few tears hit his cheek, and a soft kiss on his lips. Naruto blinked, as he opened his eyes looking at a roof that he truly hated, and said, this time I am doing it for myself. Not for the village, not for the old man. This time I am doing it for myself, and I will also find myself. And with a new conviction he got out of bed, and looked out the window, and smiled a true smile, and said, today the real Naruto Uzumaki Kazama shall be born. After getting dressed for the day, he went and saved that same idiot who was about to be killed by a falling plant, and sighed as he made his way to the Hokage's office. Naruto ignored everyone who tried to stop him, as he walked right to the door. 2 Abnu who were standing at the door, went to draw a weapon, and Naruto never looked at them, and said, if you value your lives you will let me see the Hokage. As he walked past the 2 stone guards who never dreamed a 5-year-old kid would say that. By the time they recovered enough to move they fell to the ground, as a pressure point was hit on each of their necks. Naruto walked into the Hokage's office ignoring the questioning look the Hokage was giving him. Naruto walked right to the picture of the yondaime, and bit his thumb, and smeared blood on it, shocking the 3rd Hokage. He pulled out a scroll, tossing it to the 3rd, and said, long story short. I know who I really am, and I know why you did what you did. I respect you for that, old man, but I am tired of being the village's plague. I got things to do, and you can do what you want. I don't want it known who my father is yet, so don't tell anyone. My name is Naruto Uzumaki Kazama. I don't really care if most of this village thinks I'm Kyuubi or not, but I will be taking my family name when I'm ready. I will be around sometime. Don't be surprised if you can find me, or I go missing for a week or 2. I will be back. By the way, use cage buncheons to do your paperwork. And he turned to walk out. The 3rd screamed, wait. After getting over the shock of little 5-year-old Naruto coming in, telling him he knew the secret, that only he knew, and opening a safe, that he did not know about, but Naruto kept on walking into Asuma, and went to the ally to meet Kurenai again. Meanwhile back inside the Hokage tower, the third opens the scroll Naruto tossed at him, and it did in fact state Naruto was Arashi's son, but what surprised him is when he saw Arashi's true mother was listed. He sighed not knowing what to do. He quickly called for Abnu, to get some people for him. When Kurino went to kiss Asuma kissed her back more passionately than ever, and pressed a pressure point on her neck to send her into pleasure. She moaned at this, and Naruto broke the kiss, and said sensei him. I am not Asuma. This is a henge. I won't tell you who I really am yet because you will be surprised when you find out who I am. I will tell you this. I am younger than you, but to me age is meaningless. I have admired you from a distance, but not because of your beauty, but for your compassion, and caring nature. When the time comes I will reveal the real me. Until then goodbye sensei him. And he flames away leaving a shocked Kurenai. Naruto appeared inside the Forest of Death, and having already activated his bloodline, he began rebuilding his home. Having done it before, and knowing what to do he was able to finish most of it within a few hours. His new home was basically a 2-story house, but did not have any windows or inside walls. It was just a big house with 2 floors, and the outside walls, and roof. The finer things like furniture, electric, water, sewer among other things would take time, but for now the basic house was built. It took most of his chakra to do this. His demon chakra helped, but he would have to begin retraining his body. He sighed, as he ate the fish he had a clone catch, and cooked. Naruto walked into his new home, and said this is going to be fun. And opened the dimensional portal, and pulled a scroll out of it, and unsealed the bed. He then got out some paintbrush, and ink, and got to work on some seal. After he was done he laid down on the bed, and said thank God Kyuubi taught me how to put stuff in dimensional pockets. No matter when I am in time I can get stuff in or out of it. It helps not having to rebuy stuff. Ah well. This is going to be a fun week. And went to bed not even concerned that the third had 10 of his most trusted people out looking for Naruto. Naruto woke early the next day. Quickly getting ready for the day he went, and wrote out a scroll, and sealed it, and left back to the tower, shocking many of the ninja who were there to get their mission. Naruto walked up to the mission door office, and said I requested a mission. The third said Naruto, you're not a ninja, so you can't ask for a mission. Also I would like to talk to you in private. Naruto said you misunderstand me, Hokage-sama. I do not want a mission. I wish to commission a mission. The Hokage blinked, and said, what would that mission be? Naruto said I wish to pay for 2 S-class missions. I also request for the mission, to be carried out by the same person. The Hokage said S-class mission. You know they are expensive Naruto. I also would like to know what the missions are. Everyone in the room was listening in, and Naruto said they are both delivery missions. One is to Jiraiya of the Sannin, and the other is to the Kazuki of Suna. The third scroll here is for Kakashi alone to read. The third blinked, and said would you mind explaining to me why you want that? Naruto said all you need to know, is that I want both missions carried out by Hada Kakashi, and that if either of my scrolls are open besides the intended person the repercussions will be severe. Also he must wait until he receives an answer to both scrolls. As for the pay here. Throwing the scroll on the table. There is $2 million in that scroll. Now do you accept my missions, or do I take my money, and mission elsewhere? Naruto said ignoring the looks everyone was giving him. The Hokage was shocked, and saw every one of the ninja in the mission room looking at him to see what he was going to do. The third said very well. I will accept your mission. I still wish she was cut off by the Naruto leaf shushing away, shocking everyone again. Naruto appeared back at his home, and began the task of rebuilding his home. The Hokage sighed, and looked in the scroll, and indeed did find the amount Naruto said. Said Hokage-sama. What was that all about, and how did that boy use that only or higher now? The Hokage looked up, and said Mizuki, I don't have to answer your questions now I have things to do so get back in line, to wait for your mission. Mizuki nodded, and got back in line filling this for later. The Hokage looked at the 2 scrolls Naruto had given him, and the mission money trying to figure out what was going on. He continued handing out missions, and around noon he finally got to the last scroll. He decided he would not send them out until he got answers. The next day Naruto got ready for the day, and brought out more scrolls with stuff he has for his home. He then created some cage buncheons to work on the house, and he changed into his Arashi disguise, and started getting things he needed for his home. Food, bathroom supplies, things of that nature. Stuff you don't really want to stock up on. As he was walking through the village he saw a group of villagers gathered outside his old apartment. Carefully he slowly walked closer to listen to what the group was there for. You mean the demon has not been here today? Where could he be? I heard he attacked them. I heard he used his demon power to attack some admin yesterday. I say we find, and kill him. Naruto said pardon me friends. If you're talking about the blonde with whiskers, I saw him sneaking into the women's side of the hot springs on the west side of town now. The group, which was all men, screamed let's get the demon, and charged for the hot spring. Naruto turned, and saw a woman he was hoping to see standing on the corner of the street looking at him, and said, you know, I should have taken you to the Hokage for doing that to them. The kid has a hard enough life without assholes making it tougher. Naruto said I would agree, if I did not just set those idiots up to get the shit beat out of them. I happen to know that most of the Inuzakas visit the hot springs today, and they don't like perverts. Also, the kid does not live here anymore. He has a new home hidden away from most of the village. The woman said, if what you say is true, then I like your style. By the way, I know you don't really look like that. I can tell it's an advanced henge. Also, how do you know where the kid is now? The Hokage was looking for him yesterday, and no one could find him. Naruto nodded, leaned against the wall, and said, I know where he is, but I respect his privacy. You're right. This is an advanced henge that can be dispelled by anyone, but me, and even a Sharingan can't see through it. I have my reason for doing this, but you don't need to worry about that. I will tell you I am not an enemy of the leaf. Enko walked over to him, and said, you know, I have to take you in since you're not allowed to be in a henge in this village without permission from the Hokage, and since I don't know who you are, I can't trust your words. Naruto nodded, and said, I understand, but I won't be going this time. Take care, Sirham. And he flamed away, leaving a very shocked Enko. Naruto arrived at his home, and saw his cage bunchins have been making great progress on his home. He sighed, and sat down, and said, I'm glad chakra control is based on how smart you are. If I did not have such good control from everything, I would never be able to change, and like this. Even Kajibunchins and my bloodline are draining. I need to get my reserve back up quickly. He looked at the stuff he had bought, and the stuff still needing to be put in place or built. The kitchen was nearly ready. The bathroom was done, and all seals for both rooms were finished. The seals to provide electricity and water to the house had been done, so basic necessities were done. The next day Naruto went into town disguised as Arashi again, and walked into the Yamenko flower shop. A man with blonde hair Naruto recognized, as Ino's dad said, welcome to the Yamenko flower shop. How can I help you today? Naruto said, I would like to have some flowers ordered and delivered. The man nodded, and said, can I ask why you're in a henge? Naruto said, it's because the ladies that I want to send the flowers to do not know it is me that is sending them, and I want to get both their attention before I reveal who I really am. Inoichi said, I understand, but you know the Hokage has already sent word to all Jounins in the village to capture you, right? Naruto said, I figured he would consider displaying skills no one in the village has seen before. I'm not going to cause any trouble, but I would like to order my flowers before we get to official business. Inoichi said, you know I can't do that. Naruto sighed, and said, if I can give you some proof I am a member of the Leaf Village, would you let me get my flowers and leave saying I escaped? Inoichi said, why would I do that? Naruto walked over to a set of flowers, and said growth. And the flowers grew dramatically. Naruto turned, and said, I am the great-great-grandson of the Shadame Hokage. I am also the last of my clan that can carry on my family line. I don't want the people of this village to know who I am because the village has lost my respect. I wouldn't reveal who I really am until my grandmother and grandfather arrive. I am not hostile to the village, because if I were, the village would not be standing. Catch. And he threw a scroll flame away, leaving a shocked Inoichi who thought it was an attack, but instead was a scroll. He looked around the shop, and opened the scroll, and was surprised by what was inside. It was an order for white roses and jasmines, but what surprised him even more was the note to the Hokage, and who the flowers were for, as well as the payment. He quickly closed the shop, and went to the Hokage's office. When he got there, he saw the third was at his desk, and said, pardon the interruption, Hokage-sama. The third looked up, and said, what is Inoichi? Inoichi said, the gentleman you asked everyone to be on the lookout for came to my shop a little while ago. The third nodded, and Inoichi said he wanted some flowers ordered, and he showed, and told me something before escaping. I think you should know. He claims he is the great-great-grandson of the Shadame, and from the display of manipulating plants I say it's a good chance. He also said he is not a threat to the village, but said that we have lost his respect. He said he won't reveal who he is until his grandfather and grandmother arrive. The third looked at the scrolls on his desk, and said, I see. I believe I know who he is now. If he is who I think he is, then I know why he is in henge. Did he say anything else? Inoichi said he was not hostile to the village, because if he was it would not be standing. He said he was the last one who could carry on his family line. The third closed his eyes, and said who were the flowers for. Inoichi said actually, that surprised me the most. Kurenai and Enko. He said he was in henge, because he was not ready to reveal who he was yet to either of them. The third coughed, and sat up at his desk, and said thank you Inoichi. Go ahead, and fill the orders if he paid, and any further orders. Don't worry about stopping him for now. If I am correct who he is, then I believe what he said is true. Also don't tell anyone about him being the first descendant. Inoichi nodded and left, and the third sighed before sending a message for Kakashi. An hour later Kakashi arrived at the Hokage office, and said you asked to see Hokage-sama. The third nodded, and said I have a mission for you. Kakashi said, does this have anything to do with Naruto? The third said yes. I assume you heard he requested a mission earlier this week. Kakashi nodded behind his Anbu mask, and said I don't know how he knows me though. The third said neither do I, but he left a scroll for you to read. And he handed it to Kakashi. Kakashi opened it, and began to read, and after a few moments said you have some explaining to do. Dropping all pretense of respect. The third blinked, and said let me guess. He told you who he really is. Kakashi said among other things, why did you not tell me? The third said I did it for his best interest. Kakashi slammed his fist into the table, and said his best interest, bullshit. I have seen what he has been through, and his best interest was thrown to the side the moment you changed his name. The third sighed, and said I admit I made some mistakes in dealing with him. I did the only thing I could think of to save his life. Kakashi sighed, and said give me the scrolls, I will take the missions. The third said, what exactly are they, Kakashi? Kakashi sighed, and said I don't know. It just told me who he is, and that he needs those scrolls delivered, and wait for a response to both. He said I would be the only one Jiraiya would halfway listen to, and he does not want too many people to know who he is yet. He also said I wouldn't be able to find him, because he has built a home somewhere only one person besides himself goes. The third sighed, and said I wish you would tell me what's going on. Kakashi blinked, and said you did not tell him who he was, did you? The third said he walked into my office this week, after knocking out my 2 guards, and opened a safe I knew nothing about, that I assume his father installed, and then said he knew who he was, and knew why I did what I did, but said he was not going to be this village's plague anymore, and walked out after giving me a scroll from his father. I don't know how he found out because I thought I was the only one who knew. Kakashi said perhaps he will tell you if you see him. I have some missions I need to do so I can get back and talk to him. The third nodded and said you don't happen to know if he has ever met Anko or Kurenai before you do. Kakashi looked confused and said no, why? The third said oh nothing. I was just wondering because someone ordered some flowers for both of them and I thought it might have been him. I guess I have been reading many of Jiraiya's books. Kakashi nodded and said I should be back in a month. Naruto gave me a list of places to look for Jiraiya. I wonder how he knows him. The third said he doesn't, as far as I know. Perhaps his dad left instructions for him to meet Jiraiya or something. Kakashi nodded and left, leaving a confused Hokage. Kurenai had just arrived at a dango stand with her friend Anko when Inoichi walked up and said well, I don't know how, but you both seem to have attracted an admirer of sorts. Both Kurenai and Anko looked up and said ha. Inoichi pulls out 2 different flower arrangements and hands them to the ladies. Anko said I wonder what some are trying to pull, as she took the flowers and sat them on the table acting like she did not care, but took the scroll and began to read. Kurenai also took her flowers, but smelled them, and then took the scroll attached and read it and blushed as she read it. Inoichi said, so what's he saying? Kurenai looked up from the scroll and said you actually met him. What does he look like? Anko seemed to be listening in, and Inoichi said truthfully I don't know. He matches the description Anko gave for the guy in the henge. He still had it on, and managed to escape, before I could take him in. Anko growled, and said I'm going to kill them. Kurenai said, what does he say to you? Anko said he just tries to tell me he wants to become something special in his life, and he is the heir to a forgotten clan, and he has been watching me for a while, and wants to show his feelings for me. He also says that he has also gotten to like you, and one other from another village he is hoping to get to know, and perhaps have a relationship with. Sounds like a pervert to me. Kurenai said you think it might be Kakashi. He is a pervert. Inoichi said I can guarantee it's not Kakashi. Both women looked at him, and said how can you be sure? Inoichi looked around, and said simple, Kakashi can't control plants. Both women blinked, and said ha. Inoichi said he claimed he is related to Taichi first, and the third said he thinks he knows who he is, but won't tell me who, but you did not hear that from me. Both women nodded, and Inoichi said well, I have to get back to my shop. I will be glad when Ino is old enough so I don't have to close shop. After he left Kurenai looked at Anko, and said what do you think? Anko said whoever he is, has a date with my snakes. Kurenai snorted, and said I can't believe I did not recognize he had a henge on when he looked like a sumo. Anko said, you think it might be him? Kurenai said, not if what Inoichi said is true. Do you think he is a descendant of the first? Anko said I don't know, but I have another question on my mind. Kurenai said, and that would be? Anko said he called me something nobody, but my parents have ever called me. I want to know how he found out. Kurenai nodded, and said what do you think of the flowers? Somehow he knew my favorites. Anko said I don't like flowers so I don't have a preference. Looking around lying. Kurenai said so, if he asks you out, you are going to go. Anko said please. Gaki would have to do better than a few weeds to impress me. Kurenai said I might, just to find out why he would flirt so openly like this. Anko sighed, and said I got to go. Ibiki said he wants me to work on some new intimidation stuff. Kurenai nodded, and said take care, and if you hear from him let me know. Anko nodded, and said if Smarty would avoid me unless he wants to die. And left. Kurenai was also walking by a man with blonde hair and black eyes reading a book on her way out. The owner walked over, and the man said, "Hi buddy. I heard from a friend of mine that this is the best dango shop in all of Konoha." The owner said, "Whoever your friend is must have great taste, as it's true." The blonde said, "Name's Rashi, and I am a businessman of sorts. I travel a lot, and have some unique taste, and I was wondering if you might be interested in a sort of business deal." The owner said, "Not really, but I will listen, since no one else is here right now. By the way, my name is Leo." Arashi smiled, and said, "Nice to meet you, Leo, and I think you might like my offer. I don't really want to do anything to change your restaurant except pay in advance for a few items to be in stock, so when I am in town I can have it. My offer is 100,000 a year if you would just carry 6 items. 3 different fruits, and 3 wines. I like to relax with dango fruit and wine, but it is hard to find these items in villages this far away from the clouds." Leo said, "Well, we don't really have trade routes with clouds, so I don't think it's possible, even though you have a great deal." Arashi said, "That's not a problem. Even though the wine I want is common in Cloud, it is not made there. In fact, I have a supplier who can deliver them. I just want to make a contact here to supply it, since I am planning on spending a lot more time in the Leaf Village." Leo looked at him and said, "Well, that doesn't sound too bad, but the 100,000 a year you cost me if I have to store the items for any period of time." Arashi said, "I understand, perhaps I can make it better for you. Every year for 4 years you go with keeping the item in stock. I will give you a bonus at the end of the 4th year of 200,000 for any inconvenience." Leo seemed to be in thought, and said, "Deal. How long would it take to set up the supply line?" Arashi said, "I should have it set up within 2 months. Leo nodded, and said, "Sounds like a good partner." Arashi said, "Partner? Well, if you insist." Leo said, "Deep. I was actually in a little financial problem since my regular supplier sold out last month." Arashi nodded, and said, "Well, it's getting late. I will draw up the contract, and bring it by later this week. Good night." And he got up, and finished his drink while walking off. After he made it outside, he walked toward a side street, and then down an alley, and stopped, and said, "Your detection skills are getting better since I am." It dropped, revealing Kurenai at the end of the alley, and said, "Yours are also good. So tell me, when will I actually get to see the real you?" Arashi said, "Someday, but I want to prove to you, and Anko is not just some pervert or stalker. As what I was doing back there was a coincidence that you were there. Isn't that right, Serahim?" Turning his head slightly to Anko at the other end of the alley. Anko said, "What do you plan to do?" Arashi changed henge to brown hair and blue eyes, and said, "Well, to answer that, I have figured out a few things, and I plan to do them to impress you both. I can't wait for you to meet the real me, but for now I will just leave a parting gift." Pulls something out of his pocket, and sets it on the ground, and disappears in a swirl of flames. Anko looked at Kurenai, and said, "How does he do that?" Kurenai said, "I don't know." Walks over, and picks up what he left. Anko walks over, and gasps. Kurenai looks at Anko, and sees her slowly reaching for the item. As she touches it, a single tear escapes her eyes. Kurenai asks, "Are you okay, Anko?" Anko just nodded, and said, "My mother's locket. Orochimaru threw it into a chasm on the other side of town. Even with all my skills now, I could not get to the bottom to get it." As she holds the locket close to her heart, Kurenai smiles a small smile, as Anko opens it, and shows the picture of Anko, as a little girl with her parents. They both stand there in silence for a few minutes, and Anko whispers "thank you" before they part for the evening. On a rooftop a little ways away from the two, Arashi says "You're welcome," and flames home. 4 days later at Suna, when Hada Kakashi was standing in front of the Kazakage in his Abnu uniform, and said, "Thank you for seeing me, Kazakage-sama." The Kazakage said, "Of course, Anu. So what do I owe the pleasure of your visit? Has something happened that the Hokage needs to draw my attention to?" Kakashi said, "Honestly, I don't know. I was given a mission to deliver a scroll to you and wait for a response." As he holds out a scroll, the Kazakage looked at it and said, "Very well." And he takes the scroll, opening it, and begins reading it. After a few moments he put the scroll down, and looked at it for a few minutes, and said, "I will arrive at that time to allow a meeting. Correspondence will be allowed, and I accept the gift he has given. I will also not mention it to anyone besides my family. Tell him that I agree to his stipulations." Kakashi nodded, and said, "I will tell him when I see him." Kakashi started to leave, and the Kazakage said, "You don't know what you delivered, do you?" Kakashi stopped, and turned, and said, "No, Kazakage-sama." The Kazakage said, "Tell me, Abu. Do you know this Kazama?" Kakashi stiffened, and said, "A little, sir. My duties keep me away from the village mostly." The Kazakage nodded, and said, "Do you know if he is a good person?" Kakashi blinked behind his mask, and said, "I believe so." The Kazakage said, "Good. Dismiss, and a safe journey." Kakashi nodded, and left, heading for his next destination. Back in Konoha the next day, Anko was walking through the forest of death holding the locket she received earlier this week, when she felt some chakra coming from inside the forest. Deciding to investigate, she quickly used her stealth to travel deep into the forest to the side farthest from the village, but also the most dangerous. She followed the chakra source for about half an hour, and when she arrived at an area she felt the source from which she was shocked. Because of the sight that created her, over 500 cage bunchins were water walking and running up and down trees. She recognized the cage bunchins as the Kyuubi kid. Suddenly she saw something fall into the clearing and destroy a couple of clones that were balancing on. She looked up and nearly had a heart attack. Sitting in the trees was a huge mansion. She made sure she was concealed and held her chakra as low as possible as she looked around. She watched and soon saw one of the clones that was different. She looked at it and watched as 25 new Kajibunchins appeared around that one. She then watched as the 25 clones changed into different people and took up different fighting stances. She saw one of herself in the group and became confused as she watched herself get into the serpent stance. The one she noticed was different before getting into a fighting stance she did not recognize, and then the 25 clones that were people she knew or did not know began to fight. The battle was deadly. The techniques she saw them use was something she never would have expected. The one of Asuma used trench knives and even had a wind affinity. The one of Kakashi surprised her the most as it used Chidori. Kurenai used the treatment of death. Hyde used the crescent moon style of sword fighting. Her clone used the hidden snake hand. She watched the battle, as each and every move was countered by the Naruto she assumed now was the real one. She then got a surprise that she would never have dreamed. The kid used the fourth prize for Sengen and Hiraishin. Even though she had never actually seen them, she had read enough about them to know that's what they were. She watched as some of the weaker fighters were taken out. The guy clone and a mini version of him she could have sworn to open the gates. The kid was receiving wounds but kept on fighting. The clone of Itachi said something that made Anko puzzled. "I will kill you just like I killed my clan." Soon the 25 clones that had started were down to 2. Anko looked at the 2 and was surprised by who they were. What happened next made her blood run cold. The 2 clones that were standing there were Tsunade and Jiraiya. Another clone appeared, and this time Orochimaru stood there. She listened as his clone began to speak. "Naruto-kun, I see you are still too weak to kill me. How can you hope to protect the women you love from me?" Naruto looked at him and his eyes changed red and said, "I will kill Orochimaru. I will do it for all the people's lives you have ruined and are planning on ruin. But most of all, I will stop you for Serahim." And Naruto suddenly jumped onto a tree branch and grabbed the tree branch, causing it to attack Orochimaru. Anko, who saw all of this, was frozen in place. She then heard the other 2 clones speak. "Naruto, why do you fight for a village that curses the day you were born?" Tsunade said. Jiraiya said, "Come on, kid. Do you really think with everything you do you will ever find happiness in this village?" Naruto said, "Shut up, grandfather. I heard it from you before. And you, grandmother. First putting dad up for adoption, just to keep from upsetting the Hokage. Please, you claim it was for his protection, but I know the truth. Then never telling him who you were. I lived most of my lives alone, and that pain is impossible to understand. The loneliness of not knowing if you even had a family, and then finding one is out writing books, and the other gambles and drinks. I swear when I restore my clan I will not only love my wives, but my children." And he charged all 3 Sanins, attacking each as they used their individual skills. Anko's breath was caught in her throat as she watched him stand toe-to-toe with the Sanins. She gasped when she saw her former master use a ceiling on his stomach. What happened next would forever be in her memory. Naruto slowly stood up, looked at Orochimaru, and said, "It's too late. You can't seal what's not there. Kyuubi's been dead for a long time now. Now join him." And Naruto flamed around the battlefield, attacking from different areas. Sadly, all of the Sanins still stood strong. Finally, Naruto fell to the ground face first. He rolled himself over, but just laid there and passed out. Anko was about to jump down, but something she heard earlier made her stop. "But most of all, I will stop you for Serahim." She then thought of the flame attacks he used and the controlling the trees. This was the one who was flirting with her and Kurenai. She started to get angry at that until she heard him still on the ground speak. "I'm trying, Serahim. You told me you liked white roses, and I already got your locket for you. I will get strong enough to protect you from him. At least I have not screwed this life yet. I hope everything works out. I'm getting tired of repeating lives. You still look beautiful to me. Sensei home also. I know the old man is already suspicious of me, but I don't care. He did not trust me before, so why should he trust me now? You always have such good advice, Serahim. First you tell me to learn about all the women I would like to live my life with. I tried that, and found 3 goddesses that I would be honored to grow old with. There's you, and then there's Tamariheim. It sucks being this young again. I have the body of an almost 6-year-old, but the mind of someone many years older. I gave up a long time ago keeping track. Well, I guess I better get started again. I will be glad to be a genin again, so I can finally show you my true self. I hope you're safe and happy, my." And he got up and started to walk toward a tree to get back to his house, only to pass out and all of his clones disappear. Anko stood in place where she was as she listened to him. She was thinking Kyuubi is dead. Grandfather, grandmother, repeating lives. What the hell is going on? Enko looked around and saw Naruto was still passed out and jumped out of her hiding spot and walked over picking the kid up and then climbing up to the mansion and walked inside and nearly dropped Naruto right then and there. The sight that greeted her was amazing. She looked around and saw a couch and put Naruto down on it. She then started to look around. She saw pictures of herself older than she is now with different people. She saw a picture of Tsunade and Jiraiya with some kid who looked like Naruto, and after seeing the whiskers she was sure it was him. She saw the same thing with Kurenai with what looked like a genin team. She soon found a similar picture of Naruto in an orange jumpsuit with a pink-haired girl and what looked like a Uchiha and Kakashi. Enko said, "Do you ever show your face, Kakashi, and what the hell is with the orange jumpsuit? It practically screams kill me." The voice from the couch said, "No he doesn't, and the jumpsuit is all the stores would allow me to buy Enko. They do after all want the brat to die." Enko turned and saw Naruto sitting up slowly. He turned to her looking down and said, "So how much did you see?" Enko looked at him and said, "Everything from the battle royal to the fest, and I heard you afterwards." Naruto sighed and turned slowly and said, "I guess you have questions and want answers." Enko said, "You can say that, but I am not the only one." Naruto nodded and said, "Do you think you can find this place again?" Enko said, "Yo, why?" Naruto sighed and said, "Tonight 7 o'clock. Bring Kurenai and the Hokage. Don't tell them what it's about, but make sure you're not followed. I will make dinner and answer everything." Enko said, "Why should I believe you, Gaki?" Naruto said, "I will remove your curse seal." Enko was stunned, and Naruto slowly got up and winced, as he was still hurt from the spar, and walked over to her, and said, "Also I always keep my promises. Even when they kill me." Enko seemed to think it over, and said, "Alright. I will trust you for now." And she disappeared in a swirl of leaves. Naruto sighed, and said, "Damn it. I was not ready for this." And began preparing for tonight. Enko arrived back inside the village, and went to the Hokage office. When she arrived she saw the Hokage sitting in his chair, but a man she recognized as Uchiha Itachi was standing there. Enko knocked, and Itachi turned, and said, "Hello Enko. How are you today?" Enko said, "Fine." A flash of what the Itachi clone said made her nervous a little. If Naruto really did know the future, as she suspected, then Itachi would kill the Uchiha clan. She filed that away for later. The Hokage said to Itachi, "I want you to see if you can find Naruto. You have the best chance with your tracking abilities." Enko said, "Actually sir, that's what I came here to tell you. I saw him today, and he wants to talk to you later today." The third said, "Really, and where did you see him?" Enko remembered the genin team picture of Naruto, and saw the memorial stone, so she said, "I saw him on a training ground near the memorial stone, and he asked me to relay the message." The third nodded, and said, "Never mind Itachi. Thank you anyways." Itachi nodded, and said, "Of course Hokage-sama." And he left in a leaf. Enko sighed, and the third said, "So why did you lie?" Enko said, "I really did meet him, but not where I said. I saw and heard some things today that made me question Itachi's loyalty. That's why I lied." Naruto said he wanted you, me, and Kurenai at his mansion tonight at 7. The third blinked, and said, "Mansion? What a mansion?" Enko said he built a mansion inside the Forest of Death. The third chuckled, and said, "No wonder we could not find him." Enko nodded, and said, "There is something else. He said Kyubis is dead, and the seals are gone." The third paled, and coughed at this, and said, "Anything else?" Enko said, "I think the rest should wait until tonight. I would tell your family you won't be home till late because I think this is going to be a long night." The third nodded, and said, "Why are you so open about this, Enko? You hardly trust anyone, and the fact you are basically putting all your faith in Naruto is something I have never seen before." Enko thought for a moment, and said, "I saw that kid do something even I could not do." The third said, "And that is?" Enko said, "You will have to see for yourself." The third said, "Right. I will meet you at the tower at the Forest of Death at 6:30. Enko turned to leave, and stopped, and said, "I have a personal request from Hokage-sama." The third looked at her, and motioned for her to continue. Enko said, "Don't tell anyone about where we are meeting or have anyone follow us. The kid seems like he's been betrayed more times than I have, and his trust is only so far." The third sighed, and said, "I understand. Finding out what he did will do that." Enko nodded, and left to find Kurenai. Enko found Kurenai at the hot springs. When she got there she decided to relax also. After getting undressed she went into the water, and sat by Kurenai. Kurenai said, "I thought you would be training today." Enko said, "I was until I met our mutual friend today." Kurenai blinked, and said, "Really? Did you find anything?" Hana and Yuzaka, a genin called really Kurenai, and Enko. "You both have a guy you both like. Who is he?" Kurenai said, "It's not like that. This guy is playing the whole mysterious person thing, and has been flirting with both of us." Enko said he wants to meet us tonight at 7. The two of the women besides Hana, and the two looked at them, and Hana said, "Really? So where does he plan to meet you?" Enko said, "I found his home, and he is going to prepare dinner for us, and tell us everything we want to know." Kurenai looked at Enko, and said, "Exactly how did you find him, Enko?" Enko said, "I found him when he was destroying the training grounds. They could probably beat most of the village, if they really wanted to. Kurenai sighed and said learn anything new about him. Enko smirked and said I saw what he really looks like. Kurenai sat straight up, shocking everyone, and said tell me. Enko shook her head no, and said I will tell you this. Don't let your first impression fool you. Kurenai sighed and said I hate your cryptic games. Enko said meet me at my place at 6:15. Kurenai said, but you said he wanted to see us at 7. Enko said you will find out while later. And got up to leave. Hana looked at Enko and said, are you going to tell us anything else? Enko placed her hand on the locket and said nope. And turned to leave. Kurenai sighed and Hana said details. Kurenai cursed Enko and said all I really can tell you is that he says he has admired us both for some time and that he is a good kisser. Hana said, and how do you know that? Kurenai blushed and said I saw who I thought was Asuma walk into an alley and I went to flirt like we sometimes do. Turned out it was this mysterious guy in an advanced henge that can't be dispelled. Trust me I tried. He has shown up in 3 different disguises and has sent us flowers and recovered that locket Enko said Orochimaru threw into that near here. Hana said sounds like he is going all out to impress you both. Kurenai said seems like it though I wonder why he really is hiding who he is. Hana said perhaps it's someone who was too shy to tell you. Kurenai said maybe. As she relaxed thinking about later. Later that evening at 6:30 Enko and Kurenai arrived at the tower in the Forest of Death and Kurenai said what are we doing here, Enko? Enko said we are meeting his other guests. Kurenai said ooh. The third walked up from behind them and said that would be me. Kurenai said Hokage-sama. Surprise. He smiled at her and said shall we Enko? Enko nodded and began leading them to Naruto's home. When the 3 arrived at the mansion the sun was just setting and they could still see the place. Kurenai and the third were in awe of the place and Enko was a little, but not as much as originally. The mansion was 2 stories tall and could probably hold 50 people comfortably. After they climbed the tree they walked to the front door and it opened and a man in a butler suit was standing there. The third chuckled at this and said that has got to be the second best way to use cage bunshin I have ever seen. The butler said of course, Hokage-sama. Paperwork is the best way. The third said indeed, and thanks for the tip now might I inquire as to where our host is. The butler said he will be down in moments and dinner will be ready shortly. He left orders to see if you needed any drinks and said to make yourself at home. The third nodded and Enko said I think before he gets here you should look at his pictures in the living room. Might make what he says more believable. Kurenai and the third shot her a confused look and followed her into the living room. Looking around raised several questions for both the third and Kurenai. The butler returned a few minutes later and said dinner is served and your host is waiting for you. They all nodded and followed the clone into a dining room and 2 more butlers were there and pulled out the chairs for Enko and Kurinia. A voice from behind them said I'm glad you arrived safely and I know you 3 have many questions. I promise you I won't lie about anything. And the 15-year-old version of Naruto arrived wearing a pair of black pants and a white dress shirt. The third looked at him and said why are you still in a henge Naruto? Naruto said I will explain that but I would like to tell you my story. Kurenai said to Naruto, as an Uzumaki Naruto. Naruto sighed and said yes, and no sensei Haim. Kurenai said, what do you mean? Naruto said my real name is Naruto Kazama, and I am the son of Arashi Kazama, the Yondaime Hokage. I am also the grandson of Tsunade and Jiraiya of the Sanins. I may look like I am only 6 years old, but I am a lot older than that. The third said, what do you mean Naruto? Naruto took a sip of wine and said when I was dying from a Chidori from my teammate Sasuke Uchiha, after he defected from the village to go to Orochimaru the Shinigami came and was going to take me to the other side. Kyuubi would have been released because we had not merged enough to drag his soul to the other side. I was 13 at the time. Kyuubi made a deal with the Shinigami and he accepted it. I would be given one of the heavenly powers of the Phoenix and allowed to go back to the age of 5 and try to correct the mistakes that were made in my life by myself and others. Kyuubi gave me all of his power as part of the deal. Each time I go back I keep all the knowledge I gain, and I have tried many things to fix the mistakes. Everyone was stunned by this, and the third said I find it hard to believe Naruto, and also the fact of what you said about Kyuubi also is hard to believe. Naruto raised his shirt and channeled chakra and said you and I both know the old man that the Kyuubi seal would always show up even through a henge, and as you can see I don't have it. It doesn't matter if you believe me or not. It's the truth. Anyways I will answer some questions, but certain things have to happen that can be changed, or all my knowledge is basically useless. Kurenai said, what do you mean? Naruto sighed and said a tragedy will befall Konoha within a month, and I could tell you who will do it, and why, but it has to happen. I have tried every way to stop it, but it always either results in even more deaths, or the entire city going into a civil war. Anyways, Saraham, show me your curse seal. Enko nodded, and pulled her shirt to the side a little, and the third said, what are you going to do Naruto? Naruto walked behind her, and said remove it. and placed his hand over her curse seal, and started to channel demon chakra into it, and Anko screamed out in pain, but the pain soon was replaced with pleasure, as Naruto then hit the same pressure point he hit on Kurenai, and made Anko have pleasure like never imagined, and the seal burned away only leaving a scar. Naruto walked over, and sat down, and said, "I am sorry for tricking you, and Saraham, but if you would have known I was a kid, you would have ignored me flat out on principle, and I wanted to try, and show you both I do care about you." The third said, "What were the 2 scrolls Kakashi went to deliver?" Naruto snickered, and said one was to try, and work things out with the third person I wrote to the lovely ladies here about, as a possible relationship. I sent a potential political marriage, and all, but I set it up where it's all her choice. The third nodded, and said, "Do I need to worry about anything concerning this?" Naruto said, "You will receive scrolls from Suna that will need to be sent to me. Other than that, not until my age group's exams." The third said, "And the other one?" Naruto smiled, and said, "Family reunion." Kurenai said, "What do you mean?" Naruto said, "I want him to come train me, and we are going to look for Tsunade. I will be back in time for my age group graduation." The third said, "You know I have to authorize that." Naruto said, "Actually you don't. I am a clan member, and you can't interfere with clan business. Also, as one of the founding clans of Konoha I have the right to leave the village anytime I please, so even if I were a ninja of the village I could not be considered a missing nin, unless my clan said I was, or I did so in an action that could be considered hostile. Also I should state something. I own everything from the south gate to the Hokage mountain, and all the way to the academy, as ordered by the charter of this village. That was the second reason I built my home here. The other is only skilled ninja could find it, and make it to it." Kurenai said, "What? Do you mean you own the entire village that way?" Naruto said, "Yes. The laws of Konoha says any land that is assigned to a clan that was a founder of Konoha owns that land, and can never be sold, given, or taken by the council, citizens, or Hokage. Even if someone puts homes or buildings on those lands they own them also. My family, the family of the first, wanted the village to grow so while other clans held their lands, mine allowed homesteaders to set up on our land to build the village. The only clan besides mine that is affected by this is the Hyuga and Uchiha. They own basically a triangle from where their 2 lands meet and end, and go to the academy where they are into mine. The other clans have kept exactly what they were given. No more, and no less." The third said, "What do you plan to do about Naruto?" Naruto said, "Absolutely nothing unless the village hurts my family or friends." The third sighed, and said, "Thank you for not getting revenge." Naruto chuckled, and Anko said, "What?" Naruto said, "In my last life I did do something just for the hell of it. I placed on the Hokage mountain, and had the Hokages lip sync to some songs, while I danced through the street in only my boxers, a pimp hat, and cane. I'm too sexy. I also beat Kakashi during our test to the song Kung Fu Fighting, and then the council tried to kill me, so I basically told every single one of them off, as only I could, and even made Danzo, that fucking traitor, piss his pants. I never had so much fun. Ah well." Everyone imagined that Anko and Kurenai blushed a little, and the third chuckled, and said, "I wish I could have seen that, and what do you mean Danzo, a traitor?" Naruto sighed, and said he supplies Orochimaru with information on individual ninja. Mission status, skill levels, teammates. I know he does it to the Rookie 9 and Gase team. Before that I didn't know. If I had not caught his son Sai giving the info I would never have believed it. Anyways, you should also know that the council can kill, get rid of or hurt me anymore, as I am the current clan head of my family, and I also have at least 4 different seats on the council." Kurenai said, "What do you mean?" Naruto said, "All, and descendants of Hokages have 1 seat given to them, so I have 3 from the 1, 2, and 4th. As a founding clan I also have 1 seat, and, as the grandson of Jiraiya, as he is the last of his clan who has a permanent seat on the council. Now I know Tsunade will be Hokage, so her seat will be open, and until Jiraiya dies he will have his, so that means the other 4 are mine, and whoever I have, as my wives, since I have a bloodline, and also a clan I have to have more than 1 wife. I found 3 that I hope someday to earn the right to marry, but my plans changed when Anko found me today. I will understand if either you or Saraham do not want me now that you know the truth, but I ask that I can write to you while I am away, and at least let me earn your friendship. I will tell you this. I have never kissed a woman. I am saving myself for a true marriage, so you don't think I am just trying to get with you for that. And the pressure point I hit, I learned from Tsunade how to manipulate the massage points I learned in classes." Kurenai blinked, and said, "What the hell were you taking in a Kunoichi only class?" Naruto smirked, and said, "Sexy no jutsu." And he changed into a beautiful blonde hair woman in a dress, and said, "I have busted a few slave and prostitution rings before." In a silky female voice, before turning back to his male form. Kurenai blinked, and Anko said, "How exactly would you do that if it's just a henge?" Naruto smirked, and said, "Do any of you know why you can't dispel my henges?" Kurenai said, "I have actually wondered that." Naruto said, "It's because of Kyuubi's influence on my body. Even though he's gone I have his powers, so when I use the advanced henge I actually become what you see. My female version actually is completely female. Hormones, and all." God, I hated periods. Everyone blinked, and blinked again, and the third had to ask, does that mean you could become pregnant? Naruto said Tsunade thought so, when I volunteered to go in with Ino, to bust a prostitution ring. She took the classes, and even taught me about protection, and birth control. It gave me a new respect for women. Enko said to Gaki, why the hell would you want to be female anyways? Naruto said my first version was nude so I could knock out perverts. In fact, it was that technique that made me a genius in the first place. I was tricked by Mizuki to steal the forbidden scroll, and I knocked out the Hokage with it, and I learned Cage Bunshin in a few hours. I still have trouble with simple Bunshins because my reserves are so big. Nobody ever taught me chakra control exercises, so I never learned to control it until 2 months into me being a genin. The third said, how much of the scroll do you know? Naruto said if you're worried about the sealing, that did I know it, but, as I am a seal master also I have made my own seals, that make it look like a simple exploding note. The third paled, and Naruto said I know 22 of the 23 techniques on it, and can do 21 of them. I never did learn the bloodline sealer because if you do it to anyone after 1 year old it kills them. I never learned it so I would never be tempted to use it on Itachi or Sasuke. The one I learned, but never tried to do, was the sealing Dad did. So, will you allow me a chance, to write to you both at least? Kurenai sat quietly, and said I will give you a chance for friendship, but anything past that I won't promise anything. Enko said you got my friendship when you got my locket. I do have one question though, does the tragedy you mentioned earlier have anything to do with Itachi? Everyone saw Naruto flinch, and he said yes. The third said, what is going to happen? Naruto sighed, and said it can't be stopped, so don't try. Itachi will kill his best friend. 2 days later he wipes out the Uchiha clan leaving one survivor besides himself. His little brother Sasuke. The third said, why would he do that? Naruto closed his eyes, and said do any of you know what the Manjaku Sharingan is? Enko and Kurenai both shook their heads no, but the third sighed, and said I see. Naruto said there are only 2 ways to get it, and I only know 2 people who have gotten it. Each from a different way. The third said I thought there was only one way. Naruto said Kakashi finds another way, but I never learned how. The third said I should find a way to stop him. Naruto said you can't. It has to happen to save the rest of the village. The third looked at Naruto, and said what do you mean? Naruto said Itachi will leave the village, and join a group of S-class missing nins that has already approached him offering membership into their organization. Nobody, and I mean nobody in this village can currently stand up to the 2 of them. The third said, how can you be sure of Naruto? Naruto said, how can you hope to stop the man that killed the first Hokage, and also Uchiha Madara, the first Uchiha? Everyone stopped, and ate the salad that was on the table, and looked at Naruto. The third said how can either of those 2 men still be alive? Naruto sighed, and said Kakuzu has a bloodline ability that lets him live, as long as he has a heart that still lives. He has 5 of them. If one dies he can kill someone, and replace his heart, and gain their chakra affinity. In the future Shikamaru killed 1 heart by tricking Kakuzu's partner, Kakashi killed 1 heart with a Chidori, and I killed 3 hearts with the Rasen Shuriken, which is a Rasengan with wind manipulation added to it. Currently I can't use it because it's too demanding on me. Uchiha Madara is another story altogether. You all know how the Uchiha were once right. Everyone nodded, and Naruto said he was a branch house member that wanted to be free of them so he ran, and, as luck would unfortunately have it, he was the cause of my life being hell. Enko said, what do you mean? Naruto said when he ran he discovered Kyuubi's den. He offered Kyuubi a deal, and Kyuubi altered his bloodline, to give him the Sharingan freeing him from the Hyuga family, but he was greedy also, since he wanted to rub it in the face of the Hyugas. Guess what the deal was? Nobody answered, and Naruto said in exchange for the bloodline, and the Manjaku Sharingan. A way to overpower Hyugas he would give 100 of his descendants to Kyuubi, as payment. However Kyuubi knew mortals did not live long lives, and he knew that Madara would die before the deal was made, so he cursed him, and made him a half-demon. He would live up to 1,000 years to see that his clan repaid its debt. He was also given that long in case his clan died, and he could start over. That's why Kyuubi attacked. He came to collect his debt. However Madara has become insane, and wants even more power. He has discovered a way to become a 10-tailed demon. The first ever. If he can capture the other 1 to 9-tailed demons he will be able to become completely immortal. To do this, he created the organization Itachi will join. With Kyuubi dead he can't do it, but he does not know that, and gives me an advantage to stop him. The third said, so you are going to let Itachi go, so you can stop him, and this group later. Naruto said yes. I told you I have had many lives. In all my life I have never made it past the age of 18. Either the Leaf Village is destroyed, in a never-ending civil war, or in another great shinobi war. Itachi has to kill his clan, so Orochimaru will come during my exams after Sasuke. If I can take out Orochimaru then a month later I can take out 2 more members of this group. One being Itachi. I can then pick the other 7 members off until I get to Madara, and I can defeat him. The only way to kill him is to completely destroy every cell of his body. The third said, can you defeat him? Naruto said, the last time events lead to us meeting it came out a draw. I hope I can change just enough to beat him this time. I opened 6 celestial gates, and dropped all my gravity, and chakra weights, and also 5 tails of Kyuubi's chakra for 2 minutes. For that 2 minutes. It killed him, but because my body was so damaged from it, I would have lived my life as a cripple. I stopped my healing, and let my body die, so I could start over. The third sighed, and said, can you tell us any more about what's going to happen? Naruto said no. I would like to, but they would change things too much. That's why I am leaving the village, so I won't change things here too much. Let the Uchiha massacre play out, and act normal until I return to take my Genin test. Just make sure you put me on the Genin team with Sasuke, and Sakura under Kakashi. The third said, why should I listen to you or believe you for that matter? Naruto sighed, and said, you told me this, when I tried other stuff, so you would listen. A monkey will climb higher to avoid a snake. Even with a frog, and a snail's help he may not climb fast enough. The fox can kill a snake, but only with the strength of a snail, the agility of a frog, and the wisdom of a monkey. Everyone was looking at him, and the third sighed, and said, damn it. There is no way you could know that saying, even if it is changed. Naruto blinked, and Anko asked what it was changed from. The third said instead of a fox, it was a mongoose that could kill a snake. Only person who knows that saying is dead, and has been for years. The first told it to me, when I told him my plans for the Sanins, and he died a few hours later, so he could not have told anyone it, or wrote it down. Very well. I will believe you on this, but I don't like it. Naruto nodded, and a butler brought a scroll over, and Naruto said, I want you 3 to put a drop of blood on this scroll. Anko asked why. Naruto said, it will give you access to this place after I leave. Anyone who tries to enter after the seals are on will be sent to the Hokage mountain. I have scrolls of everything I know with the exception of Rasengan and Hiraishin no Jutsu in my library. It's down the right hallway off the main living room. Can't miss it. There are a little over 11,000 from all the elements, as well as medical and. I give you all permission to look at them, and learn them, but don't try to read my journals. I put my personal thoughts on stuff in them, and if anyone, but a blood relation tries to open them it will kill them. Also don't teach any of those to anyone until I come back. Kakashi will also be allowed access, but only you 4. The third said, that's more than the entire Leaf Village. How did you get so many? Naruto said, you know how Kagebunshians learn everything you do, and vice versa. Well, I had Kagebunshians break into several other villages' libraries, and memorize them, as well as spend time among missing nin in other lives to learn them. It makes me more adaptable, and a better ninja. The third nodded, and a few clones brought out a plate with a Parmesan chicken, and some white rice with a bottle of champagne. The champagne was opened, and everyone got a glass, and enjoyed the food before Naruto said, I hope I answered some of your questions. Kurenai said yes, but we have more. Naruto nodded, and said then that will give us a chance to write to each other. I will have a summon check with them once a month to pick up any scrolls, and deliver them so he can know how we are doing, or if something important is about to happen or happens he needs to know about. Also you all should know that only you 3, and Kakashi know who I really am, but he does not know I'm from a different life, or anything like that, so don't tell him. I don't want him to depend on me, when I have to hold back. The third sighed, as he sat his wine down, and said I'm getting too old for this. Naruto smiled, and said I'm sorry again for being so mysterious, and all, but it has to be this way for now. I will be taking my real name by the end of the exam, so do what you think is wise about that old man. Denko said you said Orochimaru will be coming for Sasuke. Why? Naruto said I have said too much already, so please don't ask me that. I will say this. The only reason I could remove your curse seal Lanko is because you do not want it. If someone does want it then I can't remove it. Also I should tell you he has spies in this village. Some even I don't know. I do know who his main one is, but I can't do anything about him until later. Kurenai said what are you really after Naruto? Well live all these lives, and work so hard like you say you have. Naruto looked at her, and each of his other guests, and sighed, as he dropped his hand showing the real Naruto who said in a voice, that you could hear, was older than time, and loneliness that no one could comprehend this sense home. I want to be able to be me. Everyone already has ideas about me. Even you, and Serham when you imagine why I hate who I am. I want to be the real me. Not somebody who has to hide himself from the world. Who can't show feelings to those he cares about or show how smart he is afraid the village would kill him for it. I want to be able to relax around people who actually care for you. I want to be able to show the world the real me, and have a family who will look on at me with pride and love. That's why I do this. If you will excuse me, but it's getting late. Enjoy your evening. Then he got up and bowed to them, and the 3 butlers in the room walked behind each person, and they were consumed in flames appearing back at their own homes, and the butlers went up in a puff of smoke. That night 4 people had very little sleep thinking of everything that they saw or heard or told.
That's it for today guys. I hope you enjoyed my video and see you in the next part of this video. Till then, sayonara.